Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Behind the Lens podcast. I'm Oscar.
And I'm Alex.
Welcome to episode number 8. We've done a few of these now, right? But they're kind of spread out, but that's okay. So now we're back at it again, and we're talking about gear, the past, present, and future of what we used to use, what we're using currently, and what we want to see or what we want to get into the future. So let's get started. So first, I want to talk about also a new lens. So on the previous episode of the podcast, I was talking about a newer lens that came out recently from Canon, which was the 24-105 f2.8. As you all might know, I own the 24-105 f4. So does Alex. You can see it right there in front of us. That's the RF version, and the one that I'm filming on right now is the f4 version from. Actually, sorry, they're both f4. I'm sorry, but the EF version.
And you using a little adapter.
Correct, because I also have the R6, which we'll get into a little bit later. I have the R6, which is of course a mirrorless camera, but that lens is designed for a DSLR, which is a different system. So I use an adapter. It works absolutely fabulous. But again, we'll get into that a little bit later. So recently, I actually used this 24-105 f2.8 from Canon. As you all might remember, it's quite a big lens. It's quite big. It's so big, in fact, that Canon even put a foot on the bottom of it.
So it's similar in size to what we have here?
Correct. It's more similar to a 7200 than it is actually to a 24-105 in terms of overall sizing and shape.
Right.
But the gist is that it's amazing. Okay? Everyone who used it loved it because I used it recently on a shoot. I rented it for a shoot recently. And it was great. So before we also talk about, because we didn't actually use it last time, so we're just kind of hypothetically speaking about it.
All right.
It was quite heavy, but that's why Canon put a foot on it. So you can put it on a monopod and stuff like that, which is how I was using it, on a monopod with my R6. So overall, it's heavy, but it's not as heavy as a 7200, which is the good part.
Okay.
So,
but you have to change your approach to the way you work anyway, a little bit, because I don't use monopod, let's say.
Correct. See, but I was actually kind of used to a monopod already because I was using that like a few years ago. I stopped before because I was only shooting kind of sometimes at competitions, but because I was shooting the entire competition, like multiple days straight for like almost the whole day. You kind of need to shoot a monopod at that point if you're going for such a long period of time. Plus, the competition allowed it because we had multiple shooters, so I didn't really need to be moving around so much. I kind of just sat down in my spot, and I was shooting whatever was in front of me, kind of panning left and right and whatever. And that's also why this lens worked so well, is because we had multiple shooters, I didn't have to reach across the floor so much.
Okay, so basically, in the scenario you just described, it works. But when, let's say, I'm the only photographer on the floor, it wouldn't work so much because you have to be moving around. You can't just stuck to one spot.
It might not work as well, correct.
Okay.
If it's a bigger floor, it might not work as well. But it depends on the photographer, because some photographers like that wide angle. Like for me, I prefer the wider angle look. I actually don't use my 7200 very often nowadays. I pretty much stick to my 24-105.
I actually noticed that. This is a pretty odd thing, but yes.
Yeah.
Like as opposed to what you just said, I am using my 7200 probably, say 70% of the time.
Exactly.
That's exactly right.
But I actually found to really like that look of the 24-105 most of the time. The reason why I like it is because we've been shooting with 7200 for decades.
Mm-hmm.
Or something similar lenses.
So you're just looking
decades.
for the new look, basically.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, something a little bit fresher, more trendy, you can say, but it's something a little bit more fresh. But also, from my point of view as a photographer, like actually shooting, it's lighter, takes up less space,
right,
and it's just overall easier to use because it's just smaller, and I just like it better. And plus, again, with the look, so for me, I just see lots of benefits. Not like the 7200 is bad, to be clear. I love that lens. Okay. It's much sharper. It's much more crispy, but again, just to get that nicer, newer look, I like the 24-105.
See, in my mind, I'm not changing my habit of shooting only 30% of the competitions was 24 and to 105.
Yeah.
I only use it primarily for shooting American smooth.
Yeah.
So I go as low as I can with the camera, almost like I can sit on the floor. And that's one use. And the second thing, if I'm official photographer for the competition, I obviously do lineups.
Yeah.
And
Lineups, you need the wide angle.
For lineups, you need a wide angle. But that usage is fairly small compared to what you were describing from that experience when you use the lens for the entire. Was it entire competition or?
It was not for I didn't use this lens for the entire competition. I used my 7200 for, I would say, maybe 60-70% of it, and the other remaining percentage I used the 24-105 f2.8.
Okay, you want to summarize one more time in the practical sense what you're doing while you're using the wide lens and multiple photographers and all that stuff. Can you
actually, I have a little bit more to add on actually as well.
All right.
So from practical use, the 7200 is quite zoomed in. It's a telephoto lens. That's the point of it.
Right.
But the downside of that is that if a couple comes really close to you, you just straight up cannot shoot it.
Right. So essentially, I'm just thinking like one use where that lens would be absolutely perfect in other option, not just lineups and not just the American smooth, but let's say when I'm shooting on Sunday and it's only kids.
Yeah.
And they have size from the adults,
then the 7200 works
then
better.
70-200 actually work. This is almost ridiculous what I just said, but it's very useful with shooting kids under the age of, let's say, 13 or 14 or 15. It does work a little better. It's giving you many more options to utilize the quality of the lens. Anyway.
That's true. I forgot about that.
Yeah.
That's 100% true. But you see, where I was going, there was no kids.
Okay.
So
I understand.
But also was interesting because I actually noticed at that comp, there was quite a bit of people coming up really close to me where, again, I couldn't shoot with the 7200. It was just way too zoomed in. So actually, I could zoom out to the 24 millimeters and I can get if pretty much their entire body, because 24 is really wide, which is really cool. So that's very useful. It's like an extra feature again.
Right.
So that's cool.
So anyway, this is different people, different experiences, different. But yeah, I never used that lens, and I thought when the last time we talked about that's obviously a heavy lens, and
yeah,
we remember what we were talking about. We were saying that lens meant to be for the video.
Correct. It's because it has the power zoom
that
you can add on to, which is like $1,000, which is like, oh my gosh, that's a lot.
Kind of expensive, fancy feature. I mean, it works great.
I'm sure it works great. I'm sure it's worth it for the videographers because you need a very slow, very gentle, nice zoom. But again, and another thing to go along with that, probably because of that zoom, the ring, the zoom ring is really easy to turn. Because like on yours, it's quite difficult. It's quite stiff. You have to put some effort into it.
I don't feel that way, but
because you got used to it, right? But it's quite stiff. That one, it's like you just go like, boo, boo, boo. It's very easy. So it's really cool. So when I'm standing there, I'm sitting there usually with my camera. I kind of rest my hand on the monopod, like between the foot. So if I imagine I have the camera here, and then I kind of just rest my hand here, kind of like that, and then I could just do it with my thumb. Like here, it's quite stiff.
Yeah, I can see it.
But with that, I can just like, boop, 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 boop.
Okay.
No issues. Which is quite good, again, if you're shooting all day. Because I don't want to hold my hand out like this, because that, straining on the muscles. So I kind of relax, and then just use my thumb. And it works amazing for that. It seems like a very small niche feature that you're like, who cares about that? But it's a very nice practical use feature.
Okay. But also think about this, like something else just came to my mind. Let's say if you're shooting on a competition like Ohio, let's say, and the dance floor is a little bigger than usual.
Probably not the lens for this.
Probably not a lens for that, yes. Same thing if you're shooting at International in London, at the Albert Hall, the floor is for sure much bigger than the typical competition in the United States.
Yeah.
So in that case, you do need a little bit more of a reach. So 70 to 200 works pretty nice for that.
Correct. Again, lenses are tools. You have to use the right tool for the
Right.
job.
Right.
Of course, I'm not saying this will replace the 70-200. I'm not saying that, but in some situations it might, which is the cool thing. Kind of advancing and progressing the craft a little bit further. Anyway, so let's move on to the next topic, which is going to be kind of the meat of this episode, which is going to be the past, present, and future of our gear, which is which could be also a great learning tool for you, the audience, because kind of see how we progress and see what we would like to get in the future, either what's already out or what's coming up, or even some hypothetical lens or piece of gear
Which doesn't exist.
Right. Which we would want to come to fruition. So let's just briefly talk about the bags that we use. So I originally had a super cheap Amazon Basics one from Amazon, super cheap. It's great. I mean, not great, sorry. It's all right. It's not bad for the price, but again, so a cool feature is that, not of this bag, but of more expensive bags, is that the laptop slot, sorry, not the laptop slot, I'm sorry, where the bag opens, it opens from the back on more expensive versions to protect your gear from thieves,
Okay.
from theft.
That makes sense. Yeah.
But obviously on this cheaper one, it didn't have that. It opens like a regular, which is from the outside. It was a little bit flimsy, not super amount of storage and everything.
And what did you pay for that bag, if you remember?
It was no more than like $50 or something.
Okay. Makes
So
sense.
it was quite reasonably priced. No, for the price, it was okay. But all you need for a camera bag is it needs to have dividers, and it needs to be quite soft on the inside to protect your gear. That's it. It wasn't the most comfortable bag in the world. It was a bit clunky, but the quality was all right. But then I got my next backpack, which is the Low Pro Protactic BP 450 AW Mark II.
Wow.
That's a hell of a name.
No one's going to be remembering that. Okay.
Okay. Anyway, the name, so Low Pro is the company, Protactic is like the kind of the umbrella. BP, I'm not sure. 450, because there's two versions of this backpack. There's the 350 and the 450, which, as the name implies, 350 was a bit smaller, and the 450 was the bigger one. The 450, it's a big bag. Like, it's a big backpack. And AW stands for all weather, because actually in the bottom of that bag, there's a little cover, like a plastic cover, which you can wrap around in case it rains.
Right.
So kind of like a raincoat.
For the whole entire bag, yeah.
For your bag.
If you're thinking you're gonna be walking in the rain in London for 40 minutes, maybe that's not a bad idea to have. But in the normal circumstances, I don't think I'm carrying the camera bag anymore.
Usually not, but
usually not. Yeah.
it's more for extreme weather, because a light rain, of course, the bag will be just fine. It's a very high quality bag. Anyway, I love it. It's a bit big, but in my opinion, it's worth it, because this kind of a bag is really high quality. You buy it once, and you have it for almost forever.
You hope you're gonna have it forever, but I mean, I've been around a little longer, so it never does. But anyway,
No,
yeah, that's
quite a while though. I'm not saying forever, but like
right.
how long in your experience does like a good quality bag last?
If I rewind back like 4 or 5 years or 3 years, I used the Manfrotto bag, which I think I paid like $250 or $260.
That's quite a bit.
Quite a big, so it was expensive, sort of expensive, and I used it for a good 5, 6, maybe even 10 years. Believe it or not. After 10 years, it's getting a little flimsy. So now I use it for just as a day pack, like for basically just the random trips.
Yeah.
It's not any longer a camera bag, but I love it. It's very compact and it still works pretty good. It's very slim, so it's actually very convenient to hike with that bag. But like I said, it's not a camera bag anymore. In my present bag is actually, I don't even remember the brand. I bought the bag after multiple comparison, and I ordered like 3 bags from Amazon. And out of 3 bags, I kept one, which
Oh,
is
wow.
which is, believe it or not, I think it's like $65 bag. I don't remember the brand, so it's not a brand, but I liked it. It works very, very nice. It's very compact, and it's suitable specifically for, I think, the new mirrorless RF photographers. So it's much smaller, but it does the job. It's
Yeah.
handling. You can put the camera, you can put extra lens, and you can put another, let's say, 50 millimeter lens with adapter as well.
Yeah.
So, and basically all your rest of the stuff, So it's how long it's gonna last, I don't know. I have it for probably a year and a half or 2 years.
Yeah. Especially because the amount of use that my bag gets is really low.
Mm-hmm.
Because I actually moved on to a different bag, which I'll go over here in 1 second. Because this bag is just too big and cumbersome to actually use on a daily basis. Because in my opinion, for me, it's a bit big.
Okay.
It's actually too big. It's too big. It's just so big on my back. I just don't need that much space. All I need really, what do I need? My camera with one lens on it already, and my 7200, and a battery bag.
And a couple chargers.
One charger I bring.
One charger. Okay.
Which charges two batteries at the same time.
Okay. So it's a double. Okay. That
It's
sounds
a
good.
dual charger, which that's not much. Anyway, this bag, the low pro bag, 450 AW2, because it was a Mark 1. This is the 2 version. It's between $200 to $300. I can't find a concise price. I don't remember how much I got it for. Between $200 and $300.
Okay.
So it's not a cheap bag. But again, in my opinion, it's very high quality, has lots of storage space.
See, in the older days, before your time, I guess, as far as being a photographer,
Mm-hmm.
we were always carrying a second camera in the bag. Why? I can't even tell you why, because in my entire career shooting multiple projects and shooting from the helicopter and shooting all kinds of things, I never had a really camera failed on me, but we always feel in the old days that you need a second body of the camera just in case. I don't think it's
camera bag is perfect for that.
Yeah, but I don't think it's a mentality of today really anymore.
It's definitely a lot less than what it used to be.
So these days, let's say last year I went to London for the international, and I carried only one camera.
That's all you need.
And that's all I needed, really. So didn't even think about, in other words, listen, if once in your life, my approach is that once in your life, something really bad happening, this is one competition of your life is gone. You don't have anything. Yeah. But for the practical thing, listen, it's saving your time. It's much easier to travel light.
Correct. And this bag, actually, I do carry 2 bodies in it.
Oh, you do?
Because when I go on a video shoot, I had a video shoot where I had to carry 2 bodies.
Oh, okay.
But again, it's not for redundancy. It's because for another angle. So that's a different reason. But I
tell you honestly, now I was listening to lots of podcasts about a new Canon R8.
R8,
it's a much smaller camera. It doesn't obviously compare to neither R5 nor R6, which we're videotaping with, but it has lots of features and it's very, very fairly small anyway.
Yeah.
So carrying the camera like that, not just to have a second body, but I would think that you can keep the 24 to 105 on that lens and you can do lineups and you don't have to change the lens on the camera too many times, So you're basically keeping one camera, this camera was the 70 to 200 and the smaller body or second camera what you have.
Yeah, that's more for like weddings, I feel like, right?
Right.
I feel like wedding photographers do that because they need to quickly switch very fast between because everything there is so fast paced, right? You don't have time to switch lenses.
So they say. Okay. I've shot
I don't know.
I've shot a fair amount of weddings and
what's your experience?
I was always laughing at ladies carrying like 2 or 3 different bodies. I think they were just
over-exaggerating
what is needed. I understand people carrying second body to shoot video. That makes sense.
Yeah, because you might want a more video-centric body for that.
Right. But carrying a second camera just to keep, let's say, one camera,
Telephoto and
telephoto,
one
and one is 35 millimeter.
Yeah.
All right. Well, yeah, if you're thinking that you don't know what's happening, but for the most part, you do. So weddings are very predictable, actually. You do have a schedule, you have the program, you know what's going to be happening and what you're shooting. So I think actually having an assistant actually would make sense.
But that's a big extra cost.
It's a big extra cost, but I mean, you can budget it, and you can. I mean, that to me that makes
True.
sense.
Yeah.
So if you have an assistant, the assistant is also having another camera, and he will cover your, let's say, 35 millimeter documentaries, and you keep shooting, close up using zoom. That would make sense.
Yeah. So can you just quickly talk about the camera bags in your experience, like the camera bags that you're currently using right now?
Like I said, what I'm using right now is a cheap bag. Like I went on Amazon. I didn't go to my preferred place to buy photo gear is B&H, but since Amazon is so much easier to return, and
Of course,
there is no hard feeling about anything, So I literally ordered 3. I needed the bag like quick. I ordered 3, and I did return 2. And the one I kept was actually the most compact and most. It happened to be the cheapest one too.
Oh, nice.
So it works absolutely perfect. I love it. I think it's the brand is like Maxor or something. It's like literally no brand.
Yeah.
So don't be. Sometimes brands are good, but you don't have to have a branded backpack. Really, I mean, you can find some options, and I feel pretty safe with that bag anyway. It's nicely padded. It's nicely done. You can put a little. Actually, you can put 16-inch computer in that bag. What else is there? That's about it.
Yeah.
Actually, sometimes I travel really light. I don't recommend doing that if you don't have experience, but I can actually put like 2 pairs of underwear and t-shirt in the top compartment of the camera, and I roll them really tight.
Yeah.
And I'm good and I go with 1 pair of shoes, and I'm good.
That's actually quite smart.
Carrying almost nothing. So this is again, don't recommend doing that if you're not experienced traveler, but if you need to go light, and the minimalistic approach sometimes works. Again, for me, it does work. For others, it may not work.
Yeah. So then after I got that ginormous backpack, I was like, this is extremely impractical, especially for plane rides and all of this. When I'm carrying this giant bag for what? For like when I can have like half the size, because I only use half the internal size anyway. So then I was like, I need a new bag, a more practical bag, which I can actually carry around, and it's more practical, like I said. So then I looked around, and I went to my local camera store actually, because I want to feel it, but not only to feel it, but just to see if my gear fits in there.
Yeah.
Right. I need to feel it. So then what I did is I found this bag here. I'll pull it up right now. It's the Peak Design Everyday Sling. Look at this. Isn't this cool?
Mm-hmm.
I got the ash version here. Load, please. This ash version. Thank you. So this version right here. This is an extremely high quality bag because Peak Design makes good stuff. I really like Peak Design. They make high quality bags, and this thing is amazing. The best part about this, the whole reason why I got it, is that it fits my gear absolutely perfectly and nothing else.
Mm-hmm.
Has, like, when I'm telling you, I put my 70-100, I put this lens with this body, I put it in there, and it zips up perfectly. Has no extra space.
So you're putting the one camera with the lens and one more lens.
Correct. And then because it has like 3 slots, kind of a thing.
What do you do about the batteries of the charger?
I was just about to get into that. So look, so it has about 3 slots. Gosh, these switching. So it has like 1, 2, 3. So there's one in the middle here. There's one on the side and one on the other side. So there's 2 dividers. And these dividers are also cool because they can like flip to one side or the other side. So if you need to access one side or whatever, which is pretty cool. So in the middle, my camera with my lens, 24 to 105. And then on the one side, I have my 70-200. So it takes up the entire height of the bag.
Right.
And then on the other side, because as you know, the camera has a grip. So that grip, on where that grip is, underneath of that grip is where I store my batteries. It's obviously it's separated with the divider, but it's basically underneath there, and it fits, everything fits in here absolutely perfectly with no real extras, basically no extra space.
Okay. And it's a fairly small thing, so you can take it as a personal item on the plane, obviously.
Correct.
Yeah.
Personal item, which is amazing.
It's not even a bag. It's
more like
it's
more
not carry on.
purse-sized.
It's not just it looks like
Some female purses are bigger than this.
right. It looks like, actually, it's funny how you can go and do that now with the new mirrorless cameras.
Correct.
I guess the difference what camera makers achieved is, it's amazing.
It truly is, honestly.
Yeah, it's
like the
amazing.
size and the weight savings is amazing. The lenses are not getting any lighter, but that's okay because we still want to retain the image quality and the sharpness that are coming out of these lenses.
Right.
So we don't want to sacrifice that. But
No,
because
but compared to DSLR lenses, they quite smaller.
true, they are smaller
Yeah,
and
they
they're
are.
also sharper, which is also better. Like they're only
I'm
getting,
not sure on that.
they're only progressing. You're not sure about that?
No.
Yeah.
I'm looking occasionally at my images from DSLR era.
Actually, you're right. Some of them are sharper.
Somehow I feel that
Well, maybe it might be because of the focusing on the bodies that they're slightly out of focus.
some images, or at least the images I kept from DSLR era, was manual, not necessarily manual focusing, but basically not cameras focusing, but you focusing. Technique worked better somehow. It was not.
Yeah.
These cameras making your life much easier.
They are.
They're doing lots of work for you.
And we're not talking about auto mode. We're talking about the focusing.
Right. We're talking about focusing, yeah.
Because it focuses onto the eye. It basically locks onto the eye and it tracks it around the frame.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So yeah, obviously the old technology never allowed for that and never did it. So in this case, you're giving up some stuff what the photographers used to do. You're relying on the camera to find where it's focusing. You just
Yeah, you are relying on it more though,
right. So,
which is a downside or a plus depending on how you look at it.
right. Right.
Anyway, so now let's actually get into the lenses. So we're going into that topic. So now let's fully go into it. Lenses. So I'll start off because you have a much more in-depth history of lenses. So anyway, my first real lens that I bought, because before I purchased kind of crappy, cheap, like APS-C sized, like lens lenses designed for APS-C.
What is APS-C side?
The APS-C. My gosh,
SC, yes.
Yeah, that's a.
What
acronym.
is that for someone who doesn't know?
Basically, APS-C is the size of the sensor. So if you don't know, the sensor is the actual thing inside of the camera that actually captures the light from the outside and converts it into the image that you see wherever. So it's in your phone. It's in everything that has a camera. That's what the camera means, is that it has an image sensor, right? Which has pixels on it and whatever. But so basically, the biggest difference between a professional camera and your phone is the size of that sensor. So a phone has an extremely small sensor.
Correct.
Extremely small.
Even the number, you're looking at the number of megapixel, it sounds like a great number, but it's kind of I don't know how to call it. I don't want to use bad names, but yeah. So pixel numbers not necessarily means that much. When you're using phone, it's still a phone.
Absolutely.
It can do great job, but basically, I can deliver 2 megapixel image, and it'll be a great stuff for anything from marketing to printing on 8x10 print, and it will be only 2-3 megapixels. And versus iPhone, good luck. Sometimes you can print. But in many cases, even with newer iPhones and stuff, it's not that easy.
It's not. But also, if you see here, I just pulled up a little diagram. This is the difference between the different sizes.
Mm-hmm.
So as you can see here, like all the way down here is kind of what the phone has, or super small. And then you have all the way big, and then you have APS-C here, which is the Canon one, this green one right here. That's the APS-C that I was talking about. And then you have the full frame. So see how much bigger between this green line here and this blue line over out here? That's the difference between APS-C and full frame. Doesn't matter, that's a little bit too complicated.
Again, now just something crossed my mind. So I did use in the past, I used the, cropped sensor a lot. There was a camera by Canon, I believe it was D40.
A while ago, isn't it?
I actually love that camera, and I did lots of work with that camera, and I used the lenses from basically, I'm talking the era 2000 from 2000 to 2010. Okay, that's a decade. There was a decade when I was using cropped sensor cameras. We always had professional lenses, but for some reason, I was, and I never even thought about, like, it was just fine.
Well, because one of the benefit that you could want is that because it's cropped, similar to how you crop in like your phone after the fact, what it does, it actually zooms in your image.
Right.
Depending on a crop factor. So it's different for Canon and for Nikon. I'm not sure exactly how much it is right now off the top of my head, but it's like 1.6 times something like that.
Right. It varies from one manufacturer to another.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's 1.5, 1.6, 1.7 from, let's say,
But
Nikon,
in that range.
Nikon to Canon to Olympus. There is a variations, little bit of a difference on that number. But for all it is, anyway, like I said, I use that camera a lot, and I used it actually professionally for many years. I've done lots of aerial photography from the helicopters, and I thought it did miracles. Anyway.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so move on.
So that's my so again, we talked about that. Those were my kind of before lenses. Now, my first real lens that I bought was a 7200 f2.8, the white lens that you probably see most photographers using on the floor. This is the the RF version, the one for the mirrorless, and I own the one for the EF version, the one for DSLR, which again I use with an adapter on my R6. And it's great. Again, everything works great. The adapter,
it works.
It's like it's native. Okay, it's like it's designed for it. That was my first real lens. Again, it's quite expensive, but again, lenses last you a while. Like we were talking about it earlier off camera, that it lasts you 2 to 3 camera cycles. So you might upgrade your camera 2 or 3 times before you need to upgrade the lens.
Right. So basically, I wouldn't say 3 times is a little extreme, but it definitely, if you're using the camera for, let's say, 3 to 5 years, then the lens will be used for 8 to 10 years. Yes, that's for sure.
Yeah.
After that, you may question what you're doing, or you still need to replace it.
It depends also what lens, because if you use it a lot,
right,
it might be more beat up and whatever. But if you use it rarely, then it can last you a very long time.
It might, yes.
Like especially a prime lens, because it's more durable, has much less moving parts. It might last you a very long time.
That's absolutely
especially
right.
Because they're sharper to begin with, so you might not even need to feel that you need to upgrade as well.
Yeah.
Anyway, then I got my 24 to 105 for about $800. This lens is amazing. As you know, it's my favorite lens. I use it a lot. I use it for basically everything. Like 80% of what I shoot, 70-80% of what I shoot is on that lens. I absolutely love that lens. Also because it's very versatile. So you can go quite wide and quite zoomed in. So you just take this one lens and you can kind of have a nice range. It doesn't go anything extreme, but it's a very nice middle of the range lens. Which is very useful.
It's also the lens which is, for the practical purposes, let's say photographer need to be sitting in the middle of the room. So you can't not be...
You're not zooming in with that.
Right, not zooming in too much. So you really need to be in the middle of the room, on the wide side of the ballroom, in the middle, right in the middle.
Correct.
That's ideal spot to be using 24 to 105.
Correct. And about the f-stop on this, the aperture, it's f4 on this smaller one. Again, we were talking about earlier in the episode in the beginning about the f2.8 version. Now we're just talking about purely the f4 versions, which are the regular ones, which are the small ones which are the very versatile ones. It's f4, meaning you lose a little bit of light, and also you lose a little bit of depth of field.
I agree. Yeah.
Meaning it's a little bit, you don't get as much separation of the background. So specifically for that, it doesn't really matter because it's a wide angle lens anyway. So you don't really get much separation to begin with. Unless you zoom in, then it makes a more difference. But for me, it doesn't bother me that much, especially because the other one is so expensive. How much does it cost? It costs $3,000.
Correct.
For the 24 to...
So this lens is half price.
Basically, actually, yes. It's actually more than half price.
Well, a little bit less, but
also
the biggest, believe it or not, it's not a technical features or anything, but for me, let's say, okay, I'm shooting 3-day competition, and let's say I feel like I'm getting a little tired toward the end of the day.
Yeah.
Or if I know that toward the very end of the day on Friday and Saturday for the show time, I need to be feel like solid and still have energy. Prior to that, I will use this lens because it's so much easier. It's so much lighter. And it's so much actually easier to work with. I feel that the 70-200, it's more work. It's more work.
Effort.
It's more work. Can we explain that better? Why is that? I'm not sure I can. But the funny part that basically in this lens, if you want anything from wide angle and you got the full figure of the, like American smooth dancers doing the entire thing, it's all in your camera. With 70-200, you're just missing a shot. So when you're missing a shot on this one, like you can't reach to something far. Okay, well you can't. Okay, so you're not doing that. So.
Everything is a trade-off.
Basically,
you can't have your cake and eat it too.
Exactly.
You can't. So, but what's funny is that the price of the 24 to 105 f2.8 is more comparable to the 7200 than it is to the 24 to 105 f4. What's funny? So we talked about I just said it's $3,000. $3,000.
It is a $3,000,
which is expensive. But what's funny? This lens, it's $2,500.
Yeah.
The 24 to 105 is $500 more expensive than the 7200.
It's more of a specialty lens.
True, that is
really true. So if you're doing extremely like fancy videography, you'll buy that lens. Okay, you definitely will buy that lens. That makes sense because you're not shooting. We're talking dance, but if you're not talking dance, if you're shooting, let's say, commercials for the car commercials, then
a couple extra grand doesn't make a huge difference.
It doesn't make that much of a difference. But as far as the quality of your video, yes, there is a difference.
Absolutely.
There is a difference on focusing. There is a difference on how fast and how accurate the focusing system works. And I'm not talking about the camera. I'm talking about the lens.
Yeah, like on these high budget, like what you're saying, car commercials or any commercial, just commercials in general that have a high budget, or any shoot that has a high budget. This few hundreds of dollars don't really matter because the end result needs to be good, needs to be crispy. It cannot have mistakes. And also, not only the end result, but also the workflow. When you're actually creating the commercial, you can't have the camera be, a tool that is, lagging behind. Right. It has to be.
So in all those cases, what Oscar just described, I mean, you basically investing your money. You're buying the best you can buy, or best you can afford. And that does make sense. Okay,
that's why that exists.
Right. Before this conversation, Oscar was asking me about does it worth to pay $3,900 for the R5
instead of the R6?
And I think this is, in my mind, this is not even a question of does it worth it or not. As a photographer who care for quality deliverables, I don't want to have any excuses, so I'll buy the best I can. And that's
true.
And that's how I approach this issue, I guess.
That's 100%. I agree with that. And if you're working with a budget that allows that, absolutely go for
Right,
the
right.
go for the better.
But
Why not?
again, nothing wrong with. I mean, you don't have to have R5 like we mentioned. R8, which is 1200. How much is R8? R8?
The R8 is right now it's 1200, but before it was original price was 15.
Okay, so and we use that camera. One of our friends has the camera, and he's not a professional photographer, but yet, I mean,
It's a great camera because it's still full frame.
right. I've seen what he delivered, and that he's delivering great stuff. You know,
The mirrorless cameras are only getting better and better now, and they're only getting cheaper and cheaper.
right. So technically, not technically. So to be clear, DSLR cameras, no manufacturers are developing those cameras anymore. Okay, so they become like 35 millimeters. It's a specialty camera now. So are they going to be around? Yes, I'm sure can I say purist photographer.
It's like when digital came out.
Right.
What film is? It's basically
Right.
kind of the same thing, just moving up now. So instead of the old stuff being film,
I don't think it's that
DSLR.
big of a
not yet, but it will soon.
switch, but I think the 35 millimeter to digital was much bigger move. But
Of course, yes.
but it's
still quite a
it's
big
still
change,
quite a
though.
big change. Basically, now I'm questioning altogether why the hell for many years we had mirror reflecting the light in the cameras. I mean, when you could have just get
just
rid of it long
cut
time,
out the middleman, just go straight to the sensor.
Long time ago. But again, the sensors were different. The way the cameras were made was completely different. So
Absolutely.
now the technology allowing us for everything to happen anyway. So the mirror, which we always thought is absolutely need to flip every time you click, well,
It was loud and clunky,
right, it doesn't,
and also it can fail.
right,
As a shutter count. So then what I got next was the 16 to 35 f4 lens.
okay,
They also make a 2.8, completely unnecessary because what I got it for was real estate. So I got into real estate recently, which is quite cool. I like it a lot. But that's why I had to buy it. I actually bought this lens secondhand. I found a seller which was selling it mint, brand new for $500 when this lens was $1,300 new.
Okay.
So I got basically a brand new lens just without the box for $500. Amazing deal. But anyway, 1635 because for real estate you need a very wide lens. So I didn't own a super wide lens like that, and you absolutely need to have it. You have to. There's no questions about that. You absolutely need it. So that's why I bought it, because I wanted to get into that new niche of photography, and I absolutely love it. And again, it's an f4 because they make an f2.8, but I don't need it because I stopped down. For real estate, you need to stop down anyway, because for real estate, you need to have a lot in focus, because you don't want like only part of the image to be in focus and some of it, you don't want, like, for instance, you don't want the countertop to be in focus and then the something in front of you to be out of focus, and then the fridge behind the countertop to be out of focus as well. You need everything to be in focus. So that's why I step it down to 7.1, f7.1.
That's basically as far as I would go. I mean, even some formulas saying that, yeah, you can
You don't really need to
go
go
far as after 7. There's nothing really camera can do.
You don't need to go much further than that, because it's pretty.
Yeah.
F7.
I mean, technically speaking, you can do the 22, let's say, on the average lens, but anyway.
Yes, but then you basically lost all light at that point.
Right.
And again, you're shooting indoors. You don't want to lose that much light.
Right.
But you're shooting on a tripod as well, so you can just
So you
push
compensate. Well, yeah. In other words,
compensate.
when you're shooting indoors, real estate, yeah, you're losing the light, but also
it's a static subject.
It's a static subject. So you're basically putting it on a tripod. You can do exposures, anything you want.
Yeah, it's going on a tripod because I need to shoot 3 exposures, 2 stops apart. You don't need to know what that means. It doesn't matter. Meaning it's a dark image, middle image, and a bright image. And then when you edit the pictures, you just stitch them together to make sure that it has very dynamic range, because your eyes see dynamic range very well. Like, it has extreme dynamic range, your eyes. Because when you look, the highlights, meaning the bright part of what you're looking at, is very clear and crisp. And also the dark part is also clear and crisp. But when you look through a camera, you might have experienced this on your phone or whatever, when you're shooting something, that you have to choose one. Either you expose for the bright image, the bright part of the image, or the dark part. You can't have both. Just doesn't work like that. But again, your eyes work like that. So that's why for real estate, we stitch together. It's usually 3, but some people do even 5 exposures. In my opinion, it's a bit much. But for me, 3 isn't plenty. So you just shoot 3, and then when you edit, you just kind of stitch together so that in the dark parts, you use the brighter image, and then in the bright parts, you use the dark image, just so that everything kind of evens out and it's more natural to the eye. Anyway, that's enough of real estate. This is a dance photography show. So let's continue.
I mean, you may use this footage for something else, for the real estate.
Promoting my real estate business.
Why not? I mean, this is a good footage, and I honestly, I tell you this. I've learned few things today listening to what Oscar talking about real estate. All the different niches of photography. Well, there is a big difference. Okay,
huge difference.
So I used to shoot from the helicopter. Architectural project of future development sites and stuff. And that's completely different from what the photographers are doing today in that area. And listening to what the photographers doing today, like real estate photography, it's a completely different stuff. And the gears are a little bit different too, So anyway,
yeah,
go ahead, go back to dance, I guess.
Like what you're just saying, just to bounce off of you, there's okay, when people think photography, people think, oh, just shooting, like clicking the shutter and that's it. But no, there's so much to it. Especially, it's not even about that there's so much to it. There's so much difference in between the different niches, as you're saying. So
Right.
Dance photography, you have to have quick reaction time, the specific lenses, specific techniques that there is. But for real estate, it's a completely different thing. You're shooting on a tripod. It's extremely slow compared to sports.
Correct.
And about these multiple exposures, you shoot completely differently.
Right.
And then you have to edit them completely differently. It's completely different. The only similarity is I'm using a camera.
Right.
That's the only
I mean,
similarity.
you're using camera, but you're using completely different settings, and you're using completely different lenses. So
and completely different techniques.
like you said, the camera, the lens you mentioned, what is it, 17 to
16-35.
16 to 35. I used to hate that lens. I had this lens for my DSLR when I was working for the corporation. And anyway, and then we were doing lots of helicopter photography. And I could never get that lens to work, honestly.
I wonder why.
It never worked for what I was doing. I can't explain. I have no logical explanation, even I'm thinking I'm a logical guy, but it just never worked. And the only difference is that when one of my last photographers who actually was part of the team, he made that was his favorite lens, and he made it to work. But until he came aboard, I could make it to work. So I would rather use something much more simple, not as fancy and expensive. That lens was back in the days $2,500.
Oh yeah, for sure.
That was expensive lens.
Yeah, you're like I could see why you don't like the lens.
Also, what I remember back in the days that I was thinking I had a budget and I thought I wasted the money on that lens. That was my thinking back in the days. That was 16 to 35 DSLR lens from Canon.
Of course, this lens, you don't shoot people with it. You shoot landscape, you shoot real estate, something big, or something that you need to look big, right? Because you want the houses in real estate, you want them to look like it has a lot of internal space for them to sell better, obviously.
Right.
That's why you do super wide angle, and plus you just want to see a lot in one frame. You don't want to only see just like half the room. You want to see pretty much the entire room in one frame. Yeah. That's the whole point of these wide angle lenses. But anyway, because of it's so wide, it's a little distorted around the edges.
It is, yeah. But that's just the nature of the beast.
You can't get rid of that. It's just like that's just how it is.
No, you can if you know what you're doing. But I mean, it takes a little work.
But that's kind of just the nature of it, right? It's difficult, but that's kind of how it is with these lenses. That's kind of, again, trade-offs. Everything is a trade-off. You get a wide angle, you get to see a lot, but it's more distorted and doesn't look as nice.
Even back to the dance, I mean, we have at least one photographer I can think of who absolutely crazy about the wide angle. Mm-hmm. And I think that's pretty much everything he does is the wide angle. So
Yeah.
he's stuck on that thing. So, which is, I mean, I like his stuff, but it's maybe not the ideal way for me. I like variation, so I like to have variety. That's another reason why you have different lenses. You know,
Exactly.
you know that there is a guy. You probably know the photographer who then is shooting with 85 millimeter.
Yeah.
Okay.
Fixed focal length, right?
Fixed focal lens. So I do have 85 millimeters, but from DSLR era, but I can't allow myself to do that. Basically, I know ahead of time I'm only going to have a very few images to work with. So it's becoming a very specialty lens.
Yeah.
Because if you're shooting,
because the reason is because it's not very versatile.
Right.
Because again, it's fixed, which means it doesn't zoom. So it's 85. So yeah, it's either it's in frame or it's not in frame. Like you can't zoom it out.
Basically, those lenses are used in dense when you're doing, let's say
more studio light.
You're right, studio light. So you're graduating a dance school, and you want to have your portfolio, and the portfolio is done at the studio, and basically
where you can control every part of the process. It's not for not for sports.
Right. So in that's right. It sounds like it's sport, but it's not sport. It's completely opposite of that. So anyway, all right.
Yeah,
we're good.
So then we need to start wrapping up here. But anyway, I just want to briefly talk about future. So what do I feel like would be cool for the future? I'm gonna talk about a hypothetical lens here.
Okay.
A 24 to like 150 maybe.
Or
go the opposite way, which wouldn't be really useful for me, but maybe for someone would be useful. Keep 105, but go wider. Go to like 20 or 19 millimeters. Maybe that could be useful for someone. But anyway, for me, it's more useful. 24, I like it. It's perfect. But then go a little bit zoomed in more. And maybe you can also make an f2.8 version, or just keep it at f4 to make it more affordable.
Yeah, I'm actually surprised that we don't have lenses like that.
That's true.
I'm sure every dance photographer like thinking, okay, if it would be only one lens, it's okay. I don't have the reach of 200, but I can have
a bit more than the 105.
Not 105, but 150.
Yeah,
like you said.
Yeah,
that would make sense.
Because I was thinking, 24 to 200, they would never make that lens.
Right.
No, because it encroaches on this guy.
Right. That's kind
it's basically just a better lens of this.
Right. This is just ridiculous. But anyway,
yeah.
Like I said, I'm surprised not to have that lens at, let's say, 4.0. That would be perfect to have, but I don't think there is intention from any manufacturer to create
I don't think it's going to happen. At least not soon.
Right. So everyone is thinking you still need two lenses, the wide one and the zoom and the zoom 7200. I think it's engraved in the photography nature of the photographer manufacturers. But who knows? I mean, as you said, as a wish list.
Yeah. Do you have any wish lists for lenses?
Not for for lenses. Yeah, I have a wish list for my next camera. So this is Canon R5 mirrorless, and I'm really waiting for the Mark II upgrade.
Yeah, because it's right now, as of the time of filming, it says it's going to come out in like on the June 17th. July 17th. 17th.
Yeah. So it's a 2.5 weeks from now.
But again, as you were saying off camera, they have been very fishy about this release date. They've been kind of
and I understand they're trying to do it for the Olympics, but anyway, it's I'm sure they have lots of things to work out, I guess, with the camera.
Definitely.
But in any case, I tell you what, this camera is about 4 years old. Am I right? 4 or 5? Probably 4 years old.
4.
And that sounds about normal to replace the camera like every 4 or 5 years. Otherwise, just like you're driving a car and you have to replace everything in the car after like 75,000 miles. I mean, the shutter in this lens probably need to be replaced after using it for 5-6 years. Anyway, so you you're doing 20,000 clicks every competition, the camera need to be maintained anyway. So
Definitely.
that's one thing. But also my wish list, why I said not only I just wish for Mark II version of R5, I hope that Canon manufacturers can improve the focusing system. And again, I may sound ridiculous because everyone's thinking that's a miracle camera as far as focusing, especially the wildlife photographers who shooting birds all day long. And the camera is focusing on the eye of the bird and doing an amazing job. And yes, that's all correct. But when it comes to do what we do, moving from outdoors to the indoors, this camera is not doing as miracle of a job
In terms of the grain, right?
In terms of the grain, in terms of the focusing, and I honestly think that they can do lots of improvements in terms of, let's say, I don't shoot more than 2,000 ISO, and I would love to go indoors.
But it's also because of your high megapixel count as well.
Correct. That's another thing.
Which also makes noise worse.
I would rather lose the megapixels from 45 to, let's say, 35.
R6?
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's a little too much. But
because the R6 has a much lower megapixel count,
right,
somewhere like 22.
Right. So it's a big step down for what I do anyway. I do lots of details anyway. I'm getting lots of details from my photos, and 45 megapixel is nice, but I can step down a little bit on that number. But also, like I said, I mean, the performance of the camera indoors could be improved drastically. The focusing system indoors, I believe, could be improved. So I'm looking forward to get the R5 Mark II and keep this camera as a camera for lineup. So
as a secondary.
As a secondary camera, basically.
Just in case.
So I'll keep that lens on the camera, and I'll use this lens on the new camera.
Yeah, great.
And that's how it's gonna be.
Yeah, and for me, funnily enough, I actually feel like I don't need to upgrade at all right now. This camera, I've had it for a couple years now, 2-3 years maybe.
No, I thought it's less than that. Do you have it? I thought it's like a year and a half.
No, it's way more than that. More than that? Yeah.
Okay.
It's about 2.5 years.
Oh, wow.
I think it's 2.5.
Time is flying.
It is flying, which is crazy. Anyway, I absolutely love this camera. I have had zero issues with it. It's been working perfectly. The only thing I might need to upgrade is the batteries that I have, because I have really cheap, crappy Chinese batteries, which don't really work very well. But because they die really fast.
It's interesting what you're just saying it, but I mean, before I came here, I actually looked at the battery, the original battery. I put it in, and it's 100%, and I put this cheap batteries, and it's missing a bar. I charge them at the same time. Months.
The cheap battery is worse.
I mean, cheap battery is just not holding.
No, it does. It really, it's a big difference.
I don't have any problems with them. I just think that if you leave like batteries somewhere, and they're gonna lose your power, the cheap batteries, and somehow the original Canon batteries
they last
forever.
I feel like double sometimes.
Right. So
like it's that big of a difference.
So you actually do know. I mean, I'm not suggesting everyone buying Canon batteries.
They're really expensive, like $80.
And in fact, funny enough, I only have one original battery.
Me too.
I bought. I have my DSLR one. I have Canon, obviously original Canon. But
I didn't buy any extra batteries. I just have the original one that came with the camera.
Yeah.
And then all the other ones are just Chinese ones that I actually had.
Yeah, that's fine.
From my 6D Mark II that I bought that long ago, and I still use the same batteries.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah.
This is, and I actually appreciate. I hope that I do hope that Canon is not changing the batteries on the new R5.
They keep upgrading the LP6 and H.
Upgrading is great, but the size. Listen,
they want to upgrade the size. I don't.
Right. I hope it's gonna stay the way it is.
Yeah.
And it's doing much better than specs on the book. So the specs on the book would tell you that you can do 300 shots, right? Is that correct? Maybe 330.
I don't remember the
You
number,
can
but
do
yeah,
you can do much better than that anyway.
yeah.
But no matter what, every, let's say, with what we do, dance photography, you have to replace the battery probably every hour and 15 minutes, I would say.
Well, again, it depends on how much you shoot.
Right. No, but I mean, assuming you, like, on the average, yeah, it may last you hour and a half, but basically, if you're shooting all day, then
You probably change it like 3 times, 4 times, 4 times
A
throughout the
day?
day.
if you're shooting morning session, long session, yeah. But if you're shooting another night session, you need another 2 or 3, more likely 3 another batteries.
True.
So total number of batteries
6 to 9.
I'm carrying is like maybe 9 or 10 for the day. That's
Yeah.
So again, this is a big thing compared to the DSLRs, where
The battery life was insane.
I was just carrying maybe 1 extra battery all my life. The battery would last you all day long.
Absolutely insane.
So we are kind of falling behind in that regard anyway with the mirrorless cameras, so they do eat the battery's power real fast,
Absolutely.
and nothing you can do. You can use any settings you want.
It's
still,
just because of the EVF. It has to continuously update. It's a second screen, and they're just a little bit more advanced. A little bit. Also, they're processing a lot more.
right.
Because before, the DSLR just used to take the picture and that's about it. But here now, also the EVF, so it has to do like AI and machine learning and all this extra stuff, which again eats into the power.
Okay.
All right.
Listen, outside of the agenda, what we have we originally thought. I want to hear a few things. Let's say pick like 1 or 2 competitions where you would like to dance, where you were not, what you were not doing until now. Not photograph. Like I can talk photograph, but you also dancing.
Like you're asking, like
I'm asking you where you're gonna be dancing. Like your most exciting
my
coming
future plans?
your future plans.
Okay.
Yes.
It's actually quite exciting because, as you might know or not, I just came back. Well, not just, but I came back recently from England, Blackpool Dance Festival, one of the biggest competitions in the world.
Yeah.
I think the biggest, I would say. It was an amazing experience, of course. But the coolest thing is that we're actually going back. We're going to go back twice to Europe. So we're going to go back again to international, which is again in England. And then we're going to go again to Europe, into the Netherlands for Assen, which is another amazing competition. It's also, it's the world, so it's a very big competition as well. Lots of people are going to be there. It's a cool experience. Like all of these comps are amazing experiences, especially because in Europe, such big people. It's a slightly different system, but overall it's the same. It's going to be amazing. I love the experience there. It's again just the sheer size of those competitions just already makes it such a big difference, because the competitions here are much smaller, and you kind of you have a completely different mindset and feeling.
I mean, there are
dance.
big competitions here, but
Correct.
but somehow the rules are pretty strict anyway. So they're not necessarily open for the world. They may say that, but in reality, they're not.
Well, if it says open to the world, it is, but not many people come from around the world.
Exactly right. So it's in other words, it's very expensive for lots of people to do that. And but I also talked to the bunch of. I mean, okay, can I switch to? So my goal, since I'm not a dancer, I'm a photographer only.
Yeah.
I would love to be at Essen, Netherlands. Not sure yet if it's going to happen this year or not, but for sure, I was in last year in London for the international. That was an absolutely phenomenal experience.
Also because you were there for the best part of it as well.
Right,
The Royal Albert Hall.
I was only there for 1 day. I was supposed to go for all 4 days, but it didn't happen. Anyway, and that's okay. I got the best part, and I would love to go back there and do my best photography. The difference in those competitions to me as a photographer is one major difference is not the size of the floor, not the size of the competition, but the quality of the lighting they have permanently in the venues.
It's very good.
It's not like here someone just came in and maybe a super professional installing lighting just for this event, and then when the event is done, they demolishing the whole thing and taking it back home. So the venue where I was shooting, the Royal Albert Hall in London, it's a permanent setup lighting. The only other place in United States I can think of is actually
Utah. Because Utah, Utah is a state, right? But it's in nationals for
right.
amateurs. Basically, everyone but pro-am and professionals, all amateurs. That's our nationals. So everyone, it's not open to the world again. So it's only for the U.S. That's a huge comp. Like that's a big competition. Right. It's in BYU. It's in its stadium. So like where basketball.
It's
takes
actually
place.
in Provo, Utah.
Yeah, it's literally in the university in BYU,
right.
in their basketball arena.
Stadium, basically. It's arena.
Exactly,
yeah.
It's an arena.
So the lighting is very, very comparable to, what they had in the Royal Albert Hall in London.
It's all right.
It's all right.
In Utah, it's all right.
I mean, don't take me wrong. Ohio has a beautiful lighting. Okay, but it's not.
That's true.
It's not
very nice.
It's not a permanent setup, though. I'm talking about the difference where like you have a stadium lighting that is making the whole difference. So coming there light, and we were talking about our gears and stuff. There is no problem coming to and I hope that Essen is the same way, and I hope that the rest of the competitions, Blackpool is the same way. So I may not need no lighting setup, which they would not allow me to do anyway.
Yeah.
So, but the lighting, assuming the lighting there is absolutely great, and that's a goal. That's a goal. My goal is to create. I'm not even talking about the memory for Pro-Am. I'm just talking about creating absolutely phenomenal photography for which will last for years to come. Anyway, again, the 10 years from now, the whole dancing group of people are really different. They're dancers, so you can't. I mean, if you're shooting today, you obviously.
You're shooting basically a memory, like you're freezing time, because then people eventually, when in the future, they will want to come back, and not everyone, but some people will want to come back to you as a photographer and request pictures because, they only were 30 once, for instance.
Correct. That's exactly right.
You can only have one peak,
Right.
That's how it is. So you have to go back and
obviously
request.
every photographer, even if your career lasts 30 years, okay, listen, I'm only doing dance for 5 or 6 years. I've been doing other photography prior to that. But as far as dance career, every photographer I know does, I don't know, maybe someone lasts 10 years, but basically you burning out after 5, 6, 7 years.
Yeah.
And you're finding another venue. What do you want to do? But anyway, the opportunities in the world competition, world class competitions are just absolutely beyond what you can think of for the dancer and for the photographer. So I'm not sure you're planning any photography at those venues or not, but you're going to be dancing. And my goal, honestly, it would be absolutely great if we are at the same competition. So if I'm a photographer, and
that would be very nice.
And if I can shoot Oscar and Daniela dancing on the floor at the same time, that would be like absolute. And not only them. I mean, also I have lots of people I know, and basically it's the same group of people dancing everywhere. But that's one of the things it's in my wish list. So if it happens this year. I mean, and when I'm saying easy,
because you shot me multiple times,
right?
But just at more local competitions, not at these ginormous competitions like Austin or International or UK or whatever.
Correct.
I think we need to wrap up here because we've talked about a lot of stuff today, and we went over quite a bit, which is quite good. So we've talked about our gear, and again, guys, if you stay to the end, we're very grateful for your support. And if you have any questions, again, your feedback is also very much appreciated. So if you have any feedback, if you have any questions that you want answered on the podcast or for us, reach out, leave it in the comments, DM us, whatever. We'll see it for sure. Don't worry, okay? So, but anyway, any closing thoughts?
I mean, I just hope to do another podcast
Maybe not in 6
maybe
months.
maybe not in 6 months, but maybe like more like 4 to 6 weeks. So if that works, that schedule works for us, that would be awesome. Actually, the next like months and a half, like maybe August, doesn't seem super busy.
We could definitely find a time.
Somehow starting September, it's getting really busy with dance competition. So
Well, right now, the next 3 weeks is gonna be extremely busy. But then
I
I have
understand.
like one opening. Maybe we can do
okay,
it.
all right.
Yeah.
So think of the date anyway.
Absolutely.
I'm looking forward to see your edits anyway.
Yeah. Thank
Okay.
you.
All right.
Yeah. So now, anyway, guys, we'll see you next time, and thank you guys for watching. See ya.
I'm Alex.
And I'm Oscar.
We should repeat that. That's you start.
Okay, guys. So that's it for this episode. Bye from Oscar.
Bye from Alex.
All right. See you guys. Thank you.